Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about Magnum handguns. Handguns that are so stinking massive, everybody wants to buy one simply for the novelty of it. But the question becomes, which Magnum revolver is the best Magnum revolver for what applications? The two handguns we're talking about are built on the Smith and Wesson X-Frame. These are massive handguns that were originally built around the 500 Smith and Wesson Magnum, but later, the following year after the 500 was introduced, Smith and Wesson developed the 460. Now the name 460 is a bit misleading because the bullet diameter is actually .452. It has more in common with 45 than it does 460, but that's beside the point, kind of like the 460 Roland. So we have the 460 and the 500. There's a lot of debate on the internet as to which one's better. Most people will say the 460 is better because of this, that, and the other. Others will say the 500 just has the sheer horsepower. Where's the chaff and the nonsense, and where's the reality? And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Keep in mind, folks, these guns are not for the timid. These are not novice guns. These are not funny to hand to inexperienced shooters just to see what the response is going to be. We'll talk a little bit about that in today's video as well. With all that being said, guys, first of all, if you haven't visited our link tree, there is a link in the video description below. On Linktree, we're posting all sorts of specials for all different types of products. We're constantly updating that list, so please swing by, check out our link tree. Again, links down below. Let's get started with today's video, talking about hand cannons. All right, so let's quickly talk about the two different cartridges and how they came to be. In 2004, Smith and Wesson would unveil their new X-Frame revolver, and this is it. The X-Frame is a longer frame to accommodate a longer cylinder to accommodate the massive 500 Smith and Wesson Magnum. Why 500? Why 50 caliber? Well, there's a stupid federal law that says we can't own firearms with a bore diameter larger than a half an inch, 0.5. Therefore, we are limited in that diameter. So this pushed the limits. It took the largest diameter bullet they could, put it in a massive cylinder, and launched that sucker well over 1,500 feet per second, sometimes even faster, depending on the bullet weight. It could really launch a heavy bullet quickly. And there's a wide variety of bullet weights, from 300 grains all the way to 700 grains for these things. Just an absolute cannon. Now, the original design for these would be developed by Corbin with Smith and Wesson for this particular handgun. Then a year later, well, wait a minute, let me rewind, because there's an interesting story with the 500. So when it came out, it came out in 2004 and 2005, an article started circulating the internet where a hunter had gone to Africa and actually taken an elephant, yes, an elephant, with the 500 Smith and Wesson Magnum. There's no such thing as too big of a gun when elephant hunting, and they did it. They said they put the animal down within seconds with a shot through the lungs, and of course it went to feed the locals. It wasn't a trophy hunt. It was actually the meat was used. So a very powerful handgun. Now, I'm not sure why Smith & Wesson did this, but Smith & Wesson would then take the X-Frame and develop a new cartridge called the 460. And in that instance, Hornady helped them build the cartridge, design the cartridge, again, around the X-Frame revolver. And that would be the end result. Again, we have the X-Frame, same length cylinder. It's just the bore diameter. Both of them are 5-shot. The bore diameter is just different on the 460. Now, it's interesting to note the 500 is a half-inch diameter bullet. The 460 actually has a bullet diameter of .452. It's a 45. Now, it's not uncommon to take actual bullet diameters and exaggerate their size. Take the 460 Roland, for example. It's a 45 ACP on super steroids. It's still a 45, even though they call it the 460 Roland. Same thing with the 460 Smith & Wesson. So now this gun does have a shorter barrel. This one has a longer barrel. Keep in mind these guns are available in a number of different barrel lengths. If you like rifles and handguns, Smith & Wesson offers that through the Performance Center. This is my personal gun. The 500 is Copper's gun. We brought it out just to show you in today's video. I like the 460. I don't like the 500 as much. I do like the 500, but I prefer the 460. And in today's video, we're going to get into why. Because there's a lot of things to take into consideration. It's not just bullet weight and velocity that you need to concern yourself with when taking a look at one of these Magnums. There are other factors you may want to consider. Those factors are what drove me to the 460. I have two of these. I have the little tiny gun you've seen in a previous video, and then this is my more practical version. I've gone with a slightly shorter barrel because this gun would be great for hunting deer and, medium to large size game. Around here, we just have large deer. So that's the basic backstory behind the guns. Now let's talk about their ballistics, how they compare, and what it is about the 460 that a lot of people think makes it better than the 500. If you guys are like me and you carry a handgun every single day for self-defense, it is a great idea to make sure that you insure yourself in case you find yourself in a self-defense situation. It doesn't matter if the shoot is legal or not, you may still face criminal penalties depending on the jurisdiction that you live in, and you're definitely going to want an experienced lawyer that has again that experience in defending people in those types of self-defense situations. And the best way to do that, it's very affordable, is to get a membership with USCCA. USCCA also offers training that you can find on their website. So with your membership, it's not just simply insuring yourself to make sure you have an attorney should you find yourself in a self-defense shooting, but you can also learn how to properly carry and use that defensive firearm. For more information, please check out the USCCA website. I'll put a link in the video description below. When talking about just overall performance of the two cartridges, there's a lot of things to consider. It's not just bullet weight and velocity that you need to take into consideration when looking at one of these Magnums. If you just want to shoot the biggest, heaviest bullet you can possibly find, the 500 Smith & Wesson is for you. If that's your one simple, request of the handgun, you just want to shoot the biggest chunk of lead you can find, 500 is the way to go. But if you're looking for something that can shoot lighter bullets down to about 200 grains in factory loads, all the way up to 300 plus grains, the 460 can achieve that. And keep in mind, when you're taking a look at the two guns, in general, when shooting a comparable bullet weight, so 300 for the 460, 325 for the 500, I'm talking about federal factory loads, the performance is going to be pretty even. The 500, of course, will have the slight advantage in terms of having a 25 grain heavier bullet and pushing that bullet about 50 feet per second faster than the 300 grain bullet out of the 460. And that would continue on out to 100 yards. The 500 with the same bullet weight as the 460 is going to have about a 50 foot per second advantage over its 460 counterpart. So the 500 is more powerful, okay? Not drastically more powerful when you're talking about comparable bullet weights, but it is more powerful. Now, that power comes at the expense of recoil. On average, and most of this data we're getting from Chuck Hawks. He's a respected gun writer in the community. If you want to know anything about any cartridge out there, Chuck Hawks is a no-nonsense, great resource of information, and we are citing him in today's video. So thank you, Chuck Hawks, for publishing all of this data. So if you're taking a look at that velocity and power, the 500 is going to have it. The 460 is going to give you 33% on average less recoil, and that's not insignificant. That is actually quite substantial. So you're still going to get tremendous terminal performance out of the 460, and you're going to reduce that recoil impulse by up to 33%. And so if you're talking about a gun that you want to maybe not worry about flinch as much, the 460 is going to be the gun for you. It's the gun for me, not because of the flinch aspect, but because it has more versatility, which is something we're going to talk about here in a moment. Now, you can get on the Underwood website. Underwood manufactures specialty ammunition. You're going to find those 700 grain hard cast bullets. And those things are absolutely lethal to both whatever you're shooting it at and your own body. That generates a ton of recoil. It's uncomfortable. And I'm a seasoned shooter. Most of these guns, unless you're an exceptionally seasoned handgun shooter, they're going to be uncomfortable for you. It's just the 460 is going to be more manageable, and you're going to be less likely to, not want to shoot it with its full house loads. The 500, go at it. Now, this becomes a safety issue. And why is that? I'm sure you have seen videos out there on the internet of people handing these guns to novice shooters, like female shooters that weigh 90 pounds soaking wet. They think it's funny to do it to their girlfriend, but I've seen it happen to men as well that are inexperienced. And they fire the gun. We're going to make sure that the weapon is empty. They'll fire that first shot, and the recoil is so intense, it rocks back in the hand. They release the trigger, and when it comes back, they accidentally pull the trigger a second time. And it happens so fast, it's like, boom! I've seen it done in video on indoor ranges and outside. I don't know that somebody's actually been killed. I think that somebody has killed themselves by accident by doing that because the gun rolls back to the shooter's face on that double tap. Again, it is not funny to hand guns like this to inexperienced shooters. It makes for funny YouTube videos, but it also is extremely dangerous. It can break fingers, and it can result in a fatal injury. Now the 460, with its 33% less recoil, it's still potentially dangerous. A novice shooter is still going to be potentially hurt by shooting it, but it's going to be a lot more tame. Plus, you have options with loading this gun with 3 different cartridges that you don't have with the 500. Now, there is a 500 Smith and Wesson Special out there. I've never seen one for sale anywhere, but it exists. And of course, if you're a hand loader, you can make the cartridges as powerful or, tame as you would like to. I'm talking about factory loads. So the 460, generally speaking, would be an easier gun to work your way up to if you want to become an effective handgun hunter using it. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next segment, is the versatility of the 460. Now, another thing when you're trying to figure out lethality, again, it's not just bullet weight and velocity, there's things like sectional density. Sectional density plays a role in the performance of the bullet in soft tissue, how lethal of a blow that bullet will deliver. I'm going to take a look at my Chuck Hawk notes over here really quick. So the sectional density on the 460 is 0.210. On the 500 Smith & Wesson, it's 0.186. The higher the number, the more desirable. The 460 has a better sectional density. That means the bullet is going to do more damage at a greater depth than the 500 is capable of doing in soft tissue. Now, that's not to say the 500 is not going to dig in deep with a hard cast bullet. It most certainly will, but the numbers favor the 460. And that kind of goes to the debate between which one's better. A lot of folks will say the 460 is better than the 500. And that's kind of what we're trying to address in today's video. So let's talk about the versatility of the 460 that the 500 lacks. There's no substitute for actual hands-on experience, and that's why the 460 is so appealing to people, because you can work your way up in that power spectrum, as I've already demonstrated. But how do you shoot a full power 460 or a 500 and minimize the pain that you might feel when shooting it? Now, when people first start shooting handguns like this, their natural instinct is to simply tense up. They're going to lock their elbows out, they're going to lock that wrist, and they're going to brace themselves for that recoil, and then boom, and it pushes them backwards. Don't lock your elbows, don't lock that wrist. Shoot it like you're shooting a 9mm. Focus on the sight picture, focus on the target, and slowly pulling the trigger. Relax that wrist and leave those elbows bent, and it's not going to hurt as bad. Now, another thing, Smith & Wesson was kind enough to make these nice rubber stocks on here, and you'll notice it comes down and protects your middle knuckle from this trigger guard, because when the gun recoils, it pushes so far back in that soft tissue of the hand, that trigger guard, if this wasn't there to keep you from getting your finger behind the trigger guard, it would whack that knuckle. 357 Magnums, for example, that don't have this, can whack that knuckle if you don't have the proper grip. So that's one positive aspect of how Smith & Wesson has designed these massive handguns. So you have double action, single action capability, but typically speaking, single action is going to give you the best accuracy. So you would cock it, keep your hands away from the front of the cylinder where it meets the barrel. There's a lot of hot gases coming out of there, and if you have a digit at the front of the cylinder, when it goes off, you can flame cut your finger and do some pretty serious damage. So keep your fingers and thumbs away from the cylinder. Wrap everything around, and even keep your thumb away from the cylinder release, because that'll take a chunk of flesh off your hand if you're not careful. So I got all my fingers rolled back, I have the gun cocked, I'm going to aim it down range. Now notice my elbows are bent, my wrist is relaxed, I'm just going to touch off around, and notice how the gun just rolls back in my hand. Doesn't hurt at all. Okay, I could continue to shoot this all day long as I practice the proper technique. Five rounds is all you get. Okay, very comfortable, very easy to shoot, just horribly expensive. I've been shooting the 460 Smith & Wesson for a number of years. My first handgun was the Performance Center gun with a shorter barrel. The reason I picked up the 460 is because it is a glorified 45 long Colt. That would be the original predecessor to what would ultimately become that 460 cartridge. And so I have 3 rounds sitting here right now. This is a 45 long Colt. You can chamber and shoot this in your 460 handgun. Next to it, this is the 454 Casull. Keep in mind, in the 1990s, this was the most powerful handgun cartridge you could get. It is a blaster. We'll show you what that looks like here in today's video. And then the 460 steps it up even further. All the bullet diameters are the same in these cartridges, and you can shoot all these cartridges out of your 460, much like you can shoot a 38 Special out of a 357 Magnum. It's not going to do any damage. The only thing I would caution you against is using hard cast lead bullets out of the 454 or the 45, because that lead will accumulate in the cylinder and you will want to clean that out for optimal performance if you're going to use 460 down the road. Hard cast in the 460 will be fine because the bullet's going to reach the end of the chamber in the cylinder and you're not going to have to worry about that leading as much. I typically shoot jacketed bullets because lead becomes a real problem when you're talking about the velocities. These handguns can push those rounds. Of course, you can use gas check bullets and things like that, but I don't want to get into that. That's kind of a diversion. So when you're shooting the 45 Long Colt out of this thing, it's a pop gun. My son shoots the 45 Long Colt out of the 460 and absolutely enjoys it. No pain, no massive recoil, no massive concussion. Next up, you can introduce that new shooter to the 454 or yourself. The 454 is going to give you noticeably more recoil, definitely lots of muzzle flash, but still not where the 460 is. When you're ready to step up to the 460, then you can start experimenting with the different bullet weights and things that are out there that are available for the handgun, and then you're going to be at the maximum potential for energy out of the pistol. So that's one of the key factors that I like about the 460 is the fact that I can shoot 45 Long Colt, which is less expensive, more readily available. A lot of gun stores will have it, where you may not be able to find 454 Casull or 460 out there without buying it online. And, you know, it's just a lot of fun to shoot, and it's a great way, again, to either train yourself or to a new shooter. With the 500, as I previously mentioned, you have 500 loads, and then you have that 500 Smith Special is what I'm looking for. The 500 Special, again, Jason and I have looked to find those cartridges available just to see what they're like, because we don't reload, we just use factory ammunition, and it seems to be mostly unobtainium. 500 ammunition, on the other hand, is readily available if you want to pay $80 to $100 a box for 20 rounds. So it's not an inexpensive handgun to shoot, and that, unless you are Bill Gates, relegates both of these handguns to serious use only and not such good plinkers. Even 45 Long Colt is comparatively more expensive than something like 45 ACP or 9mm, and it can be sometimes hard to find depending on the market. So neither of these guns are truly inexpensive to shoot, even the 460, but it is definitely less expensive to shoot than the 500. So that is what primarily draws me to the 460, that diversity. And then when I step it up to full horsepower loads, you're only talking about 50 foot per second difference if you're using comparable bullet weights, and the muzzle energy is with 150, 200 foot-pounds of each other, and you're talking about really high muzzle energy numbers. Let's see, we're talking about looking at my notes over here, I want to say that the muzzle energy is up around 2,000 foot-pounds with one of the best loads out there for these handguns. So that is nothing to scoff at. That's literally rifle power out of a handgun. Now the barrel length is going to dictate velocity as well. So if you're wanting to achieve maximum velocity and help to tame that recoil a little bit, you can go with these a handgun like this, which has a barrel that's just much too long for my personal tastes. I've always liked the shorter barreled guns because if you pick up one of the Alaskan rigs, you can carry it here comfortably on your chest and even on a hip holster. It's going to be more practical for field use. And a handgun like this would definitely be a prime candidate for dangerous game territory. If you're out hunting bear and things like that, this is going to do far better for you in terms of being able to put a threat down versus even 10mm, my other pet cartridge, or 44 Magnum. You got much more power out of these handguns. This is my 460. I have it loaded first with a 45 Long Colt from Federal, then I have a 454 Casull in there from Hornady, and then I have the 460 load in there, which is a 300 grain bullet that will be fired last. So this is going to give you an idea of the progression of power that this gun is capable of safely shooting. So the first shot, 45 Long Colt. Literally feels like a pop gun. It's nothing even like 357 Magnum. It's more like a 38 Special, let's say. Next up, 454. Now this is going to have a lot of muzzle flash and stuff like that because the powder's optimized for a slightly longer barrel, but the recoil will go up significantly as well with the 454. Quite a bit more blast. Even in daylight, you could see a muzzle flash. Now let's go to the 460. This is the creme de la creme. And much different. I felt that one in the palm of my hands. The other two, not so much. However, I could literally shoot that 460 all day long. If it didn't cost an arm and a leg to buy the ammunition, I could shoot 100 rounds in an afternoon and I wouldn't go home sore. But there's also a technique to it. So what would a video be without a demonstration of the power of the 460? In my hand, I have a Federal hunting load. It's a Barnes bullet, and this thing weighs 275 grains. It is no slouch. And in front of me, I have some of my wife's water. I'm sorry, honey, if you ever watch this video, but I have a funny feeling I'm about to get wet. Well, needless to say, hydrostatic shock is a real thing. I don't know why. I guess it's a kid inside of me that makes that so much fun. So Jason wants in on the fun, and he's going to send a 460 275 grain Federal round down range onto the water bottle. I would say that's it, man. We did our part. That was very green of you.
This is a lot of fun. Oh, man.
I hope you guys found today's video informative and fun to watch. I absolutely enjoy shooting these types of handguns. They're a lot of fun. I haven't gone hunting with one just yet, but I actually intend to go hunting with the 460 at some point in the future. I might even just take a deer right out of the shooting shack one year. And if I do that, of course, we'll make a video. Guys, if you enjoy content like this, consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. You'll get early access to content, special content, direct access to me, and all sorts of other perks. So please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button and support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Last but not least, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 14 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.